What's the best productivity system for writers? Hi there, my name is Brian Collins and welcome to the Become a Writer Today channel. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 4 different productivity systems or methods which you can use to manage complicated writing projects like a book and also to manage your freelance writing career. You can also use these to balance writing with the other parts of your creative life. Hope you enjoyed the content in this video. If you do, hit thumbs up. If you want to get more videos like this or about the writing process, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. My journey into the world of productivity started about 10 plus years ago when I was working as a freelance journalist. I got a gig writing for a local newspaper and I was writing news stories about local council meetings. And one day before a deadline, an editor called me into the office. He said, "Brian, where's your news story?" And I said, "I'm still working on it." And he said, "Well, you're late. You've missed your deadline and we're trying to get this paper to press." And I explained I was trying to get my news stories just right. He told me, "Brian, if you can't send your news stories over in time, you're not doing your job. And if you're not doing your job, I'm going to fire you." Now, he didn't actually fire me in the end, but I did move on from that particular newspaper and ultimately from journalism. But experiences like this sent me down a rabbit hole of reading productivity books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and getting things done. And also trying dozens of different types of productivity software. A couple of years ago, I even wrote about productivity for Forbes, writing and interviewing experts and influencers in the niche. So there's lots of different systems that you can try, but the 4 that I'm about to give you are the ones that I think you'll get the most benefit from. Number 1, don't break the chain. Don't break the chain is the easiest productivity system for writers to apply. It can help you build a daily writing habit or advance your writing projects every day. It's a system that Jerry Seinfeld came up with back when he was an aspiring comedian. He tasked himself with writing 1 joke every day. That was it. It didn't matter if it took him 15 minutes or an hour, but his job was to write 1 joke. If Jerry wrote a joke successfully, he would go over to a wall calendar for the month that he hung on his wall and put a big red X through the date. And then his only job was not to break the chain of X's. And this helped him cultivate a habit of writing every day. So if you're looking for a way to simply become a more productive writer, consider Don't Break the Chain. And there's apps that you can use on the iPhone or the iOS App Store and Android, like Streaks, that you can use to help you with this Don't Break the Chain technique. But again, you don't need to use apps. All you need is a red felt pen and a calendar, and simply put an X when you've accomplished your 500 words for the day or worked on your writing project. And often that's a great way of making small but measurable progress on your writing goals. Number 2, the Pomodoro Method. The Pomodoro Method is another productivity system that I use quite a lot. And I've actually interviewed Francesco Cirillo, who's the man behind the Pomodoro Method. And you can find my interview with him on the Become a Writer Today podcast. I really love the Pomodoro Method and it's one I use every morning to work on whatever my most important creative project is. Here's how I use the Pomodoro Method. So I turn on my computer, I open up my writing app, and I normally have this all set up the night before. Then I will take a timer on my computer or use a timer app and I will set it for 25 minutes. I put on a pair of noise cancelling headphones and listen to ambient music. When 25 minutes elapses, I'll take a quick break. I'll go downstairs, get some water or stretch, and then repeat for another 25 minutes. I will stack 4 of these sessions on top of each other, each time taking a 2 to 3 minute break. After 4 Pomodoro sessions, I'll take a longer break to get something to eat or even go for a walk. Doing 2 hours of sustained work where you're in a state of deep focus will help you get into creative flow. It will also help you accomplish more with your writing projects because you're making real progress without worrying about distractions. Now, of course, for the Pomodoro technique to work, you need to be able to eliminate distractions. So that's why I use noise cancelling headphones. I'd also recommend that you put your phone in do not disturb mode and that you disable notifications like email and social media. If you really want to go hardcore, you can disable internet access if you find yourself browsing social media or the news when you're supposed to be writing by using an app like Freedom or Rescue Time. Now, when I interviewed Francesco, he pointed out that the Pomodoro is not just about writing for 25 minutes or working in a state of deep focus for 25 minutes. It's all about a system that you have for your creative work. So you need to track what you do during each of your Pomodoro sessions. You need to remember to take the breaks, and he advocates for 25 minutes, no longer, no shorter. And you also need to have several of these sessions that you stack up on top of each other. And then at the end of the week, you should review how many Pomodoro sessions you've completed and what you've accomplished, and that will help you readjust the following week. Personally, I found that the Pomodoro technique can work all day, but that can be exhausting. So I normally use it for the morning when I'm engaged in writing a first draft. Then in the afternoon, I'll do something else that doesn't necessarily require that state of deep focus. Again, it's a great productivity system for writers because it forces you to focus on writing or editing or your most important creative project and not get distracted by everything else that may be going on with your freelance career or your writing career, because you can attend to all of those tasks later on in the day when you don't need to focus so much. The only cons I would say with the Pomodoro technique are it doesn't really work as well with deadlines compared to the system that I'm going to give you next. And it doesn't necessarily work for all types of environments. So when I was working as a copywriter for a British software company, I wasn't able to use this technique so much because people would interrupt me during a Pomodoro to ask me questions when I was writing at my desk. So when I was working on a copywriting project, I'd actually go to a meeting room, book the meeting room and use the Pomodoro technique for 25 minutes before returning to my desk. So it really does depend on your work environment. The third productivity method that I'm going to give you is Getting Things Done by David Allen. And I recommend that you read the book Getting Things Done as well. And I interviewed David Allen for the Become a Writer Today podcast. It's a productivity method that became really popular in the mid to late 2000s, particularly in Silicon Valley with people who are founding startups. Getting Things Done is a system for managing your entire life and not just your writing. Essentially, the system has been tried and tested for the past 20 years. But when I talked to David Allen, he said it was a system that's as old as dirt. Basically, it involves breaking your creative goals or your goals for your wider life or your business and your projects down into a series of next actions. So if I'm writing a book, I would ask myself, what's the next action on this book? Is it writing 300 words? Or if I'm self-publishing a book, I'd ask myself, what's the next action to self-publish my book? Is it hiring a book cover designer? And then I would break that down further. What's the next action for hiring a book cover designer? Perhaps it's setting up a project on Readsy. So this way, when you have a series of projects, you're constantly asking yourself, what's the next thing you need to do to advance each of those projects? You also need to have an outcome for each project as well. So to return to an example of self-publishing a book, the outcome for that could be a professionally published, self-published book that sells 1,000 copies within the first 6 months. So then that would give me a series of actions that I would need to complete to achieve this. Everything from finding a professional book cover designer and book editor to figuring out the basics of Amazon ads and to creating an email campaign for my email list. You need to track all of these projects, your outcomes and your next actions in one place. And for this, you're going to need some sort of productivity system or tool. You can use a basic tool like Apple Notes, or you can use some checklist software to keep track of your next actions, or you can use a to-do list app and you'll find a plethora of those in Microsoft or in Google or for free online. Currently, the one that I use the most is Trello and Dynalist. Now, the other great thing about getting things done is something called the weekly review, and this made the biggest impact for me. A weekly review is something that you do once a week. You step back and you look at everything that you've done during the previous week and everything that you're going to do during the coming week. You're going to ask yourself what worked, what didn't work, what should you do more of, and what should you do less of. You're going to look at your calendar and ask yourself, did the commitments for the past week make sense? And then the calendar for the coming week and ask yourself, do your future commitments make sense? And what I'd recommend you do is, if you want to apply this to creative work, put time in your calendar for writing. So that way you've made a commitment to writing or editing and you're able to fit this around all of the other demands in chances are your busy professional or freelance writing life. Now, the productivity system Getting Things Done does take a little bit to figure out. David Allen talks about having all of your inboxes and putting all of the information in one place. It took me a while to get my head around this concept. So I recommend that you read his book, Getting Things Done, or you listen to my interview with David Allen on the Become a Writer Today show. Now, the pros of this technique are it's an established methodology which is trusted by Fortune 500 companies. In other words, writers can use it too. It's also great for managing complex projects, and particularly if you're working with someone else and if you're balancing writing with the rest of what's going on in your professional or personal life. The cons are it takes some practice and self-discipline to put it into practice. You're going to have to go and read the book or watch a few more videos or talks with David Allen to really grasp some of the concepts. And also, Getting Things Done has a few buzzwords and terms that can take some time to learn. But basically, if you're looking for a system that's more than just focused on writing, Getting Things Done is one that you should consider. The fourth productivity system for writers that I recommend you use is called Personal Kanban. Personal Kanban, or Kanban, is a productivity technique that was developed by a Japanese engineer named Taicho Ono. Hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Now, over the past 40 or 50 years, it's influenced everything from manufacturing processes to IT development. But what does any of this have to do with writing or managing your creative projects? Well, Jim Benson has written a book called Personal Kanban, and he explains how you can apply this to your personal projects. Essentially, you're going to need some sort of board. So you can use Trello, or you can use a whiteboard, or you can even use a large piece of paper. And you're going to divide it into 3 columns: to do, doing, and done. To apply personal Kanban, there are 2 rules: visualize your work and limit your work in progress. To visualize your work, you're going to write each of the tasks in the to do column. And then to limit the tasks in progress, you're only going to work on 1 to 2 tasks, i.e. drag them to the doing column per day or per week. So that way you will constantly have a backlog of tasks that you're going to work on at some future point and which you've tracked and gotten out of your head. And then you also have 1 or 2 tasks that you're going to work on a given day. So for example, if I was preparing to record a new course, I would have all of the lists of all of the tasks I needed to do for the course, such as record videos, write copy for sales page, prepare email, launch funnel, and so on. And then I would drag one of those into the doing column for the day, such as write copy for sales page. And then I would just do this task before I move on to something else. And what's great about this is it'll help me avoid overwhelm. Now you can use special software for it. I recommend Trello because it's built with Kanban in mind. And when I was a freelance writer, I used Trello quite a lot for managing freelance writing projects. What I would do is give each one of my cards on a Trello board the title of the article that I was writing. And then when I could click on a card, I could see who it was for. And I could also assign due dates or deadline dates. And then I could visualize all of my work in one place as a freelance writer. And then when I was ready to work in a particular article, I would just simply drag the card to doing, fire up my writing app and get going. When the writing article was done, I would drag it to done on the Trello board and move on to the next article. This is a great way of managing lots of different writing projects in one place. Those are my 4 preferred productivity systems for writers. My key takeaway for you is this: just pick one system and stick with it until you figure out how it adapts to your creative workflow. There are lots of productivity systems out there, but it's better to pick one system and use it than to procrastinate and alternate from one to the next. In summary, if you want something simple that will help you write, consider Don't Break the Chain. If you're having trouble focusing and accomplishing more each day, try the Pomodoro technique. If you want a system for managing writing as part of your business or your wider work life or even your personal life, consider Getting Things Done. And if you're a freelance writer or you have lots of different writing projects on the go and you're having trouble juggling them all and remembering all the due dates and deadlines, consider using personal Kanban and the productivity software Trello. And actually, on productivity software, you may be wondering what I'm using at the moment. Currently, I use Dynalist to create bullet points of to-do lists of things that I need to do. And I also use Trello to manage all of my writing projects. Hope you enjoyed the content in this video. If you've got questions about any of these productivity techniques, or you'd like me to go into a bit more detail about how I use any of them, let me know in the comments section below. And to get more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Become a Writer Today channel.